Warning, the following show contains high levels of magic and mayhem. Please keep all hands, feet, and body parts inside the vehicle at all times. And get ready for thrills, laughs, and a whole lot of fun. This is the Magic of Mayhem. Welcome, foolish mortals, to a podcast unlike any other. Welcome, everyone. It is Austin with the Magic of Mayhem. If you couldn't quite figure out what we're talking about, just based off that intro, just replay it. Or just look over my shoulder and you know exactly what I'm talking about here. The Haunted Mansion. This ride has haunted me, haunted my heart since I was a kid. Honestly, the Haunted Mansion is one of those rides that's dark, that's funny, but at the same time, it's oddly comforting, right? Today, we step beyond the mortal realm to uncover the history, the secrets, and Imagineering magic behind one of Disney's most legendary attractions. Welcome all. I hope you're excited for this. It is a deep dive on a Haunted Mansion. I've never really done a ride deep dive, and so we're gonna do it with the Haunted Mansion because this is one of my all-time favorite rides. I'm rocking a legit shirt that says "Spooky since 1969," and it actually says the Haunted Mansion on it if you're seeing it on YouTube. But yeah, spooky since 1969, and we'll just give that spoiler alert. Guess when the Haunted Mansion opened in Disneyland? 1969. So yes. We're back, baby. It's been a couple weeks. There's a lot going on. If you haven't checked out the Dads of Main Street, T-Doms as we like to call it, as I think it's a hilarious, we're Doms, you know. On YouTube, on Instagram, that is my new podcast with three other amazing people, Sean, Josh, and Marcus. All their Instagram handles. We have the Park Hop Dad, which is Josh, the Mad Hatter, and the Magic on Main Street official is Sean, and then my good buddy Marcus, the Diz Dad dude. Three amazing guys, and we've decided as a foursome to start a podcast talking about, you know, real world problems, talking about real world struggles as a man, as a dad, you know, with the love and passion we have for Disney, that it's okay. We're here to break that stigma, that it's okay to cry on Main Street, that's okay to be in love with Disney, to show your passion, but not just at Disney, right? To do it in your daily life, because honestly, it's impacted all of us. If you look in this room alone, I've got a Moff Gideon helmet. We got all kinds of Disney memorabilia. I see C-3PO's on the ground. I'm pretty sure I got R2 on the back. My next unboxing is actually behind me. If you could see it right here. Yeah, you know what I'm unboxing. I ain't going to spoil it here on the podcast unless you saw it. So, but the T-Doms, the Dads of Main Street, it's our new one. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. We've gotten such great feedback. We're super thankful for it all. But yeah, we're having real world, you know, discussions about it, and we love it. So let's get into it. The Haunted Mansion. Walt wanted a haunted house in Disneyland as early as 1951. The park hadn't even opened yet, and Walt was already envisioning, we need something on the verge of like a haunted house, right? We need to do something kind of scary, kind of fun, scary in the park. And that came to the ultimate battle of what this ride turned out to be, right? We have Mark Davis, and we have the other Imagineer. Man, I screwed that one up, huh? Mark Davis and Claude Coates had this constant internal struggle between whether they wanted to make it scary or whether they wanted to make it funny, like a fun house kind of style. Both wanted the Haunted Mansion to happen, obviously. And this whole ride was just a combination of collaboration, but in the sense like, hey, Group A is working on it, Group B is working on it, and Group C is working on it. But Walt didn't tell A, B, and C that B and C and A and B were all working on it. So he kept it very quiet as far as those groups and allowed them to make their own process for it to become a whole collaboration for a ride that we all love. I just have to say that one of my favorite Disney movies, one of my favorite Disney movies is The Muppets Haunted Mansion. It is absolutely one of my favorite things to watch during Halloween. It is my wife and I's absolute favorite. So in honor of that, I want to give a big shout out to Josh and Gina at Bring Back the Magic. Their podcast, if you haven't checked it out, you should, because they are hilarious, brother-sister duo, and their podcast is funny, but they are in such crisis right now that Muppets Vision 3D is closing, and the rock and roller coaster that is now going to be Muppets Mayhem is opening, or is going to get in construction. They're very sad about it. Me, as a West Coaster, yeah, I'm sorry, Muppets 3D didn't connect with me, but I am really excited for Muppets Mayhem being the rock and roller coaster, so I'm excited about that. But as a tribute to them, my all-time favorite Halloween movie is the Muppets Haunted Mansion. It's hilarious. King Prawn Pepe is my favorite character of all time, and on that movie, it just solidifies it, right? So great shout out to them. If you have not checked out Bring Back the Magic, their podcast is amazing, and we will be collabing soon, so hope you're ready for some double the magic, because it's the Magic of Mayhem and Bring Back the Magic podcast. So we're going to have a great. But so anyway, so Mark Davis, Claude, going back and forth on that, right? But this is the only attraction. So it opened in 1969. Obviously, I said that already. But it was nearly 2 decades of development. And to this day, it is the longest period of development of any Disneyland attraction. 2 decades it took them to go from concept, early stages, into a final ride opening. Almost 2 decades. It's 19, close to 20 years, right? 1951 to 1969. 18, 19, almost 20 years, right? So it's the longest concept. So if you think about that, you had to be really dedicated to something to wait 20 years for this to finally happen. Obviously, Walt didn't get to see it. Obviously, he didn't make it. He didn't live to the point that he got to actually see the Haunted Mansion fully opened. But it's such a tribute to his vision, such a tribute to, his hand being in this creative process with multiple people and creating a ride that we all love, right? So Haunted Mansion to this day is one of my all-time favorites. So the initial drawings, though, for the Haunted Mansion was of a creepy, decayed, kind of Southern-style mansion. Now, Walt always had said that he didn't want any rundown buildings in Disneyland, which, honestly, to this day, in my opinion, is such a solid decision that Walt had made, that we're not going to have a creepy, dilapidated, old-style mansion that was creepy on the outside, right? Because I think the perfect appearance of the Haunted Mansion from the outside adds such a fun twist, knowing how it looks on the inside, right? It adds a creepy aura to it that, hey, it looks so perfect on the outside, but on the inside, we know how the Haunted Mansion actually looks. So I give that major props to Walt on, not just having the outward appearance that, oh, this is a Haunted Mansion, guys. You could see it just by how it looks run down. No, it looks pristine. It looks beautiful. But when you go inside, you know exactly that it's not, right? So I think that is just a key aspect to Walt's vision, knowing what he wanted for his park, knowing what he wanted to see, just how that happened, right? It just came out so perfect. The Haunted Mansion aesthetically is beautiful, and I'm just talking about Disneyland. And everything got its, inspiration from that ride, whether it's in Walt Disney World, etc. Walt Disney World has things that we don't have, as far as I love the staircase room in the Walt Disney World one. We don't have that here in Disneyland. But it's such a cool one, seeing the footsteps being above you and around you. And their library is on the ride, where ours is kind of like a walkthrough. So there's cool different elements that they changed. And then you've got the manor. You've got different versions in all the different parks. So it's pretty cool to see. But the OG, Walt had his original vision in it, and it's so awesome. To this day, I keep repeating that the Haunted Mansion is absolutely one of my favorite rides of all times. So Rolly Crump also, a big-time Imagineer. I'm sure you guys all know his name is Rolly. He had actually caught Walt's attention during this time, and I think this is what kind of put him on the map, because he made such bizarre designs and objects. Walt actually had a whole plan for him. Walt's plan was that he was going to make kind of he initially wanted thought that maybe this is the Haunted Mansion. Rolly's designs would just be part of the ride. And then as it got later in the stages, Walt was like, hey, you know what? Instead, after the ride, we're going to like dump you into the Museum of the Weird. And it'd just be all Rolly's designs. It's things that are inspired by Rolly on the ride are actually like the chairs that actually look like monsters that are actually like just a chair, but it's got like kind of a face on it. Rolly was very good at envisioning these weird designs, this off the wall things that I'd say a normal person doesn't really like can catch or figure out, but he did that. So I think Walt's idea of doing like a Museum of the Weird as you exit the ride was such a solid idea. I'm actually really bummed that doesn't exist because I think that's kind of a cool idea. Even now with them adding, Madame Leota's kind of like exit, into that little gift shop, I think they could have done something right there as maybe a tribute to Rolly, right? Maybe we add a couple things that he did. I don't know. I haven't been to the new one, so maybe they did, but I haven't seen anyone write about it or talk about it or be like, hey, these are like Rolly's designs. So maybe in 6 months, which is when my Disneyland trip is, actually less than 6 months, I'll be able to tell you that, whether that I see some of Rolly's designs in that little Madame Leota's little gift shop, right? So I'll pay attention to that for us, and then maybe I'll jump back on here and be like, hey, I was right. There's Rolly's designs. But I think Walt could have been sick. But as it got later into the design, they kind of, it didn't last. It just didn't make it to the final cut of what they thought that this ride would be. So they scrapped the idea of, the weird designs that Rolly had thought of, a Museum of the Weird. Honestly, thinking about it, when you exit the ride and take that little escalator, they could have done all kinds of cool things inside that escalator other than the bride, the one, the hurry back. Like, you could have left that in there, but still added a bunch of like weird stuff that Rolly had done as you're kind of exiting the ride. I think they could have still did it. I still think to this day they could do it, but that's not what the ride is. That's not how it ends. So Rolly did not get his wish. He did not get that. He got a couple things in there, obviously the weird chairs and things like that, but Rolly was, just a visionary. And Rolly actually, during these, had a room. I don't think it was on the Haunted Mansion. It's somewhere, maybe it was in WED, but he'd actually made a room just of all these weird things and animatronics. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I think it was Rolly, just going off my memory here. And based off the Bring Back the Magic pod, I'm with him. We're all about memory, not about history, and making it 100% accurate, although I want to give the Haunted Mansion all the dues that it deserves. But they had made a room that made lots of noises and weird stuff, and the janitors went in, got freaked out, and said, nope, you guys clean this the rest of the time. So I think that's a hilarious little joke that Rolly may have played on the janitors. So during this time, obviously in 1951, they started on it. But when it came to 1964, 1965, a huge historical event happened for Disney. And most of you understand the importance of what happened during this time. It changed a lot of rides, changed a lot of different things. But during that time, the ride focus on Haunted Mansion was halted due to the New York World's Fair. Now, watching historical things about the New York's World's Fair, Walt got tons of ideas through this. A lot of things happened. A lot of things funded too. One of the big things that got funded out of this was the great moments of Abraham Lincoln. The whole animatronic system needed money, and Walt got funded through this. And I think it was the state of Iowa, or state of Iowa, or was it Illinois? Wherever Abraham was born and lived, they wound up funding this project, and Walt crushed it. It's still a thing for us, to this day. Great moments with Mr. Lincoln lives in the Disneyland park. And I'm really sad that that's going to go, because it's something that Walt actually did. I'm excited for great moments with Walt Disney. Don't get me wrong, but like something about it being Walt's original thing is kind of sucky to say goodbye to. But during that time, during the World's Fair, the team had to figure out how to get a large group of people through every hour in a timely manner through the whole ride and follow a story. Now, their biggest fear, so on a walkthrough, was their first initial concept, right? That they was going to be kind of like a Museum of the Weird. You're going to go room to room, small groups, and go and see whatever they have for that room Here we go. Cool. Everyone keeps walking through, kind of like a normal haunted house, right? You go to Six Flags, you go to your local haunted mansion, little scary house, haunted hay rides, and they all kind of have the same ebb and flow, right? You drive through the corn maze, you get scared at certain points. You walk through a haunted house, you get scared at certain points. People are trying to jump at you. You go through different rooms, right? And they tell you like, hey, keep going, keep going. So their biggest concern of that was that they couldn't get enough people to keep moving. They couldn't keep the pace going if it was just a walkthrough. And they were really actually worried about if kids got scared and would hold up the train, right? If kids got scared and they didn't want to continue on the ride, that was going to be an issue as far as ebb and flow and getting people through this ride or through this walkthrough at this point. So that was a big concern for them, is how are we going to get these people to keep moving through this ride? And through trial and tribulation, as a lot of good things happen for Walt Disney and Disneyland, a lot of bumps in the road cause innovation, right? Innovation is what makes us push the boundaries as a human species. Innovation, hard times is what we adapt. It's evolution. It's learning, how can I do this better? It's never just stopping with this is okay. So that happened, and they came up with the Omni Mover ride system. That was created by Roger Brogy and Burt Brundage. Those two had figured out, hey man, we're going to make like kind of this buggy looking thing, and then it can rotate as people are going through the ride. So that way they're not just face forward the whole time, and they can actually see, and we can put a scene to their right. And then we could rotate them during the ride, and we could put a scene to their left. Meanwhile, we could hide stuff behind them and they'll never see it. And then we're able to just focus on each scene that we want them to focus on. Like here, you focus on your left here. You focus on your right here. Oh, we could go through straight and put everything around you. Like a genius concept. I mean, to this day, I think it's led up to things like the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride in Walt Disney World, where it's a free rotating like roller coaster, right? That it changes and moves. So you can focus on the scene that needs to happen. So a great, fantastic idea by those two guys, two Imagineers there, to make the Omnimover and make you have the pace, which is their biggest concern. It's now you're on a track system. Now you're controlling people. They just sit in it and you're in control. So now you're controlling your pace. You're controlling what the audience sees. And now you've just figured out your problem of like, hey, if a kid gets scared, well, he's got no choice. He's locked into that doom buggy, right? So it's awesome. It's a great idea. And it caused such an innovation for, I'd say for the whole future of that. I think one of the most famous rooms that we all love is the Madame Leota room, right? Played by Leota Toombs. Now, she did, pass away, a famous Imagineer, part of the business, right? And then her daughter, Kim Irvine, just announced, literally within the last couple weeks, that she was retiring from Disneyland or from Disney Company. And it's so sad. And I love that her story of like taking her kids to go see her mom, aka Grandma, in the seance room for the Haunted Mansion, and they'd be like, let's go see Grandma. And like, I think that would be the coolest thing, to kind of have your parents, your mom, your dad, like forever enshrined in a ride, forever enshrined in a certain scene that people love, right? Everyone loves Madame Leota's scene. I actually have Halloween decorations as Madame Leota. I have a big old inflatable, and it's her doing the whole seance, and I love it during Halloween. It's one of my favorite like inflatables that I get to put up. It's so cool. But again, like, it's such a iconic scene. We all know Madame Leota. We all know. So not only did she give up her first name, but she gave up her likeness and her voice, and she is actually on the floating globe. So Leota Toombs gave up her rights, donated her rights to being Madame Leota. So it's super cool. Then when the new one came out, then Kim Irvine actually came, aka her daughter, played that role when they did their newer version of it. And it's such a cool, like, iconic thing that it stayed within families. I wonder if Kim's daughters will ever like take up that role again and be the third generation to do Madame Leota, which would be ultimately super cool. But because we don't know, I still think it's such a cool thing that it's in the lineage of the family, not just one, but 2 generations of people were Madame Leota, a mother and a daughter. Oh, like what a touching, loving story, right? So that's our favorite. One of our best rooms of the entire ride. I would say the second one, and again, they had to figure out a way to move people, but the stretching room, right? That's an elevator in Disneyland to figure out, like, how can we move people without them kind of paying attention? The elevator scene. I actually have all 4 of the pictures as drapes. So during Halloween, our whole kitchen actually has 4 drapes, and it's like the cartoon versions of the 4 pictures inside the Haunted Mansion. It's also one of my favorites. It is such a tone setter, right, for the ride. There's always my way is such an iconic line that lives in my mind just as we're doing it. And same thing with Madame Leota's scene. Like, you could hear serpents, spiders, tail of a rat, pour in the spirits wherever they're at. Like, such an iconic, it's just in the back of my mind. I can pull it out just that quick, right? So it's such a great scene. Same thing with the stretching room. Like, it just sets that tone for, we're going to ride Haunted Mansion right now, and we're in the stretching room. Like, here we go, right? Such a fun one. I love that one. It's also very dark, right? Very dark. There's always my way, and then there's a hanging body on a noose. Whoo! That's setting the tone, right? That's telling you how you could join the 999 ghosts and be the 1,000th. There's always my way. I know I talked about this in a past episode, but that is a dark, dark part of the ride. I just have to say it. But it's just such a great room. Another one of my favorites, I have to say is the graveyard scene. It's fun. It's nostalgic. You just see all kinds of different ghosts hanging out in the graveyard. Obviously, the Grim Grinning Ghost Come Out to Social Lies song is right there. It's iconic. The 5 headstones is so cool. That whole graveyard scene is fun. There's people drinking. There's people riding bikes. There's people chasing each other. And it's all iconic. You have the popping up heads that scare you. It's such a classic, iconic scene. This whole ride is just an icon. That's basically what it is. I'm pretty sure the state of California can make this just a historical building, and everyone would agree. Like this, the whole ride is history, and I think they can't ever tear it down, ever do anything different because it's home. It's the Haunted Mansion. Now, as a kid, I avoided this ride like the plague. I'm not a scary movie guy. I'm not hey, let's watch a slasher. Like, no, I've never been that type. I'm getting better. I have to say, as I'm getting older, my age now, I'm like, whatever. That doesn't scare me at all. Let's watch it. So I am getting better. But as a kid, nah, fam. I ain't about it. I think I legit was a teenager before I wrote it for the first time. And by teenager, I memean like 15 or 16. Like, I did not ride it. I was just too scared. I don't do scary stuff, like I said. And then I fell in love with it as soon as I wrote it. I was like, what was I thinking? Like, this is the coolest stuff. I remember some girl telling me in like grade school that a ghost sat on my lap and farted on me. And after that, I was like, nope. I don't want nothing to do with that. That ain't happening to me. I am not all about that. And now I'm really sad that I never did it. But it's been such a love, scary, hate thing for me. But I love it so much. Continuing on with our history of this ride. Xavier Atencio. We all know him. AKA it's X, right? Made a final attempt at the script a year before the ride opened to make the ghost host appear as a raven throughout the ride, and at the end revealed that he wanted to possess a guest as they were leaving, making them the 1,000th ghost, right? So, I think that's such a solid ride concept story, like to just keep a continuous storyline through the entire ride. To be, our host is actually that raven that kind of rolls with it. Now, when you roll through the ride, you're like, oh, I see that raven everywhere. So it makes sense, right? So theoretically, we could roll with that theory. That was so, I'm sorry, obnoxious, because that was a repetitive thing. you can roll with that theory because that crow goes through every scene, right? You could see that crow in every part. Right away, he's chilling on the tomb or the casket that's getting open. Let me out of here. Let me out of here. He's right there. He's on the trees as you're going out. He's somewhere on one of the tombstones. Like, he's everywhere, right? So now it kind of makes sense. Like, hey, that was actually a great idea that it was the ghost host trying to possess you at the end that you become the 1,000th ghost. So I think they could have done with that. That would have added a very kick up on the scary level because people be like, whoa, the crow's going to try to possess me. So now I think that's the challenge to you that are all listening here is look out for the crow. He's everywhere, right? You might not know where that is. So it's hilarious. Also, what X did was that he made the rough edit or the first initial concept of the Grim Grinning Ghost song. So something that we all love and cherish. Again, Yo-ho, yo-ho, A Pirate's Life for me. X, Grim Grinning Ghost, the first concept, X. X was amazing. He was such a key factor to Disneyland, such a key factor to, creative concepts for Disneyland as far as songs and things that he has done, for Disneyland. So it's super cool to hear that, find that out, to do my research on. It was such a cool thing. One of the coolest illusions on the ride, and I bet you can figure this out, it's called the Pepper's Ghost. Now, without me saying anything, think of an illusion, right? What is an illusion that we're seeing right away on that ride? Not right away, but during one of the scenes, it's definitely apparent. And before I even say it, just think real quick in your mind. Like, okay, an illusion in the scene. Do you got it? Do you understand what it is? How about the ballroom scene, right? That is an iconic area. The ballroom scene is fun. It's cool to see. But the Pepper's Ghost is actually the illusion of what we see, right? There's a mirror. They're shining a light on some certain figures. They're reflecting, and they look like they're in a different spot, a.k.a. inside the ballroom. The dancing ghosts, the ghost blowing out the candles, all the ghosts right there, the ghosts doing a shoot-off or a standoff. That whole scene right there is the illusion of Pepper's Ghost. We all know they're actually underneath us, but the way that the mirrors and the light cause a reflection, it looks like it's actually right there in the ballroom. So that is called the Pepper's Ghost. It is such a cool illusion. We don't even pay attention to it, right? We don't even our brain doesn't trigger that, oh, they're actually below us and reflecting into the ballroom. So the Pepper's Ghost. So when you're on the ride next time, be like, hey, I know what this illusion's called. It's called the Pepper's Ghost. It was actually invented in 1862 by John Henry Pepper. So it was named after Pepper, John Henry Pepper. That's why the Pepper's Ghost happened. So fun fact about that, he had invented it for a play. It was actually one of Charles Dickens's, one of his books that involved Christmas and ghosts. And he created that illusion on stage during a play. Could you imagine how cool that probably was for people with no television in 1862 to be like, what? That ghost just disappeared? Or that ghost just appeared? I don't even get it. That's insane. I can only imagine just being blown away by the illusion in 1862. In fact, it was so revolutionary that the Prince of Wales, aka the future king, King Edward VII, him and his bride, who wound up becoming a queen as well, had to come see it. So while he was a prince, they went to see John Henry Pepper's play for the Charles Dickens story. I forget which one it is, but it's not the original that we all know, but it was one of the fourth books, I believe, or his newest book, and they used the Pepper's Ghost to create that illusion, and I can only imagine how much people's mouths were just dropped. I'd be like, babe, did you see that? There was a ghost on stage, and then they disappeared, and we're looking at the same spot. Wow, how did that happen? So I bet, so cool. I bet that just blew everyone's mind away. Let me take a quick sip. By the way, drinking Coors Light today. It's hard when you talk for 30 minutes by yourself. When I'm on a podcast like The Dads of Main Street, we have 3 other people to talk and give me a break and catch my breath. But man, when you're a solo podcaster, you gotta talk the whole time or else you people are gonna be snooze fest, right? Snooze fest. So yeah, I apologize. And I also apologize for the early start where I screwed up with Mark Davis and Claude. It's probably going to be, I'm just going to leave it how it is. I actually did pause that episode, pause for like 2 seconds. But anyway, so let's continue. If you made it this far, then I know that you actually love me and are listening to me. So I'll just be honest. Yeah, I screwed up at the beginning. So apologies. I'm just going to leave it in there. And if you made it this far, you can laugh at it with me because I screwed up. Let's continue on. The lore of this ride, I think, has created such a like fun, right? From Leota to all kinds of different things, right? We all love the Leota scene, but let's talk about some iconic figures besides Leota, right? We have the 5 headstones in the tomb in the graveyard scene that sing Grim Grinning Ghosts. We all know that one. In fact, that's on ornaments. There's all kinds of stuff for that. But then we also got the 3 funny ghosts at the end, the hitchhiking ghost. We all know the hitchhiking ghost. They're on the parades now. They're on collectibles. They're popcorn buckets. They're everywhere. I love the hitchhiking ghost. I think that was such a fun concept too, to add that. Again, kind of maybe a little bit of the Pepper's ghost. You're seeing your own reflection and the ghost pops up. I think it's hilarious. But again, that was a scene where, you know, the chick had lied to me and said, oh, yeah, that's where the ghost sat on me, right? And farted, and it scared me for the future, so screw you. But hilarious, right? Yeah, hitchhiking ghosts, but they're everywhere. They're on merch, collectibles. They're included in parades, all that jazz. Another one of my all-time favorite iconic figures, right? It's the Hatbox Ghost. His debut in 1969 and disappearance just a few weeks later made him a cult classic for a long time. Everyone said that the Hatbox Ghost existed. He didn't last that long, 3-4 weeks, maybe a month. But he didn't last long. But he was so thought and talked about that I knew about him before he ever came back, before it was ever gonna be a thing added back to the ride. He was talked about. He had such a lore about him, such a fanfare about him that everyone knew who the Hatbox Ghost was without knowing what he was. I love that he was a historical figure, honestly, right? He was historic. He was the illusion just didn't work. The technology wasn't there for the illusion to work. Now that illusion works 1,000%. It only took him, 40 years? 50? Wow. I just said 40 years because they opened in 1969, and that's still not close because 30 years is 2000, 40 years is 2010. I'm a little bit behind. So 50 years, 60 years? I ain't doing math. I'm terrible at it, so we're just going to skip through and pretend that I'm right. 50 or 60 years, Austin. Nailed it. Now, he has merch, has collectibles. He had it, I think, to some degree before he even got released. Then he got added into Walt Disney World, and I kind of was like, you don't deserve him. He was a Disneyland thing. Now you guys got him too in Walt Disney World, and I can't hate that. I can't hate it, because who doesn't love the Hatbox Ghost? Now, question for you, though, that are, still debating. Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Go on my socials, TMO_mayhem, and write me and be like, I'm listening to your podcast right now, and I agree that Disneyland should have only kept the Hatbox Ghost and not Walt Disney World. Or I disagree with you, Austin, that we in Walt Disney World deserve to have the Hatbox Ghost. I'd love to hear it. I would love to spark a debate on that one, because I just want to know, do you think that the Hatbox Ghost deserved to be in both parks or just Disneyland? And in my opinion, Disneyland only. So sorry, Walt Disney World people. You guys get your own stuff too. And then we just have to copy and paste you and bring Avatar into ruin Monsters Inc. And I'm just disappointed. We don't need Avatar again. It doesn't make sense in that park. So anyways, that was my angry rant. Now, fun things about Disneyland's Haunted Mansion that Walt Disney World does not get is, since we are halfway to Christmas, it is June. December is 6 months away. We get A Nightmare Before Christmas, the overlay on the Haunted Mansion. And let me tell you, as someone that absolutely loves A Nightmare Before Christmas, yes, We get that, and you don't, Disney World. You don't get a Haunted Mansion overlay. Take that one. So, yeah, we'll take that win. Whoop, put it in our shooter. Halfway to Halloween, halfway to Christmas, and we definitely get one of the best overlays to Haunted Mansion. Now, purists are going to be like, nah, they shouldn't touch Haunted Mansion ever. But as me, I love A Nightmare Before Christmas. I saw Danny Elfman perform. I saw Billie Eilish perform Sally. I watched Oogie Boogie. I watched Pee Wee Herman in person. The only person who didn't show up was, now I'm blanking out. I got to see Weird Al. I got to see them perform it live in concert, and it was the greatest thing ever to see A Nightmare Before Christmas live with a live orchestra and the original people minus, why can't I think of her name right now? But Billie Eilish replacing her and playing Sally was amazing, and she sang so good. So good. It was so good. I absolutely love this overlay. Jack, Sally, Zero, Oogie Boogie all make appearances on this ride. As far as just nostalgia, it's hard to top just Haunted Mansion by itself, but when you add A Nightmare Before Christmas as the overlay, it's so good. So good. It just makes it so much fun. And then you got the gingerbread house in the ballroom. Every year, Disney, Imagineers, Disney cake artists decide to make a new cake, right? They make a new cake, a new gingerbread house, and they put it in the middle of the ballroom where the old granny's blowing out her candles, except you have this awesome, one-of-a-kind work of art that has to last all through Halloween and Christmas, right? And it's such a great thing. It always just adds you're always like, oh, what is it this year? It's so cool to see. And that adds such a fun thing to that overlay, and I love it. Like I said, I love this ride. I love Haunted Mansion. I was scared to ride it as a kid growing up. Did anybody else, I just want to know, did anybody else actually get scared to ride the Haunted Mansion as a kid? Did you not do it like me until you were a teenager? I got to know that one. So if you're listening to this point, please let me know. I just want to know, were you afraid of it as well? Because I was a big weenie. And I thought I wouldn't like it, but now it's on my must-ride list. Every time I'm at Disneyland or Disney World, you got to ride Haunted Mansion. It doesn't matter what park you're in, you have to ride it. Or the Mystic Manor, whatever it's called in your park, you have to ride it. It's so magical. It's so good. But yeah, the scariest scene of that whole thing is when the guy hangs himself. It's just so nuts. It's just fun. Now, my final question to all those listening now, if you were with the 999 ghosts, would you be the 1,000th? Would you be the 1,000th ghost? And would you, be that 1,000th ghost? Would you, if you could choose, you being the afterlife, would you become that 1,000th ghost? Would you do it? If you could pick, you're like, hey, when I pass away, my ghost is just hanging out in Haunted Mansion. Would you do it? I guarantee a lot of us would be like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be the 1,000th ghost on Haunted Mansion. And I don't doubt myself, because I know 110% that I would be that guy. I would be, the ghost on there. So, yeah, I 100% would be. This has been so much fun. Haunted Mansion is one of the greatest rides of all time. It's such a tribute to a bunch of people still contributing to something that they loved. A bunch of groups, making this perfect ride. Normally, if you have too many chefs in the kitchen, the product ain't gonna be good. But with this came out fantastic. I think it's because Walt was so involved with it that it was a 20-year process. They really dug in to make sure that this is gonna be perfect. And they crushed it, honestly. There's no wrongdoings with this. It's just been such an iconic ride for so long that we can't go wrong with it, right? It is just everything that you could think about in Disneyland, everything that you could contribute to Walt. This ride can't just be touched. It's almost as up there. It's right up there with Tiki Room. I have to say, the Tiki Room is one of my favorites as well, and it's Walt's baby. Walt even said it himself. It's his baby. I learned a ton about the Tiki Room this last time listening to a Walk with Walt podcast with Carrie Rutkin. If you haven't checked that out and you want more like historical walks with Walt, as they call it, that you're going on the road less traveled when it comes to the history of Disney, of Walt, check out their podcast. It's amazing. Carrie and Pete put on such a fantastic show. They've interviewed everyone. They even interviewed Cleo Thomas. And if you know who Cleo Thomas is, he was on Holes. He's Zero. They just do such a great job as far as a podcast. A Walk with Walt. One of my favorites right now. I can't give them enough shout outs. They're fantastic. Carrie's a great host. I always love that they go on a rant and wind up running out of time with their guests, and then they have to actually like redo it, or not redo it. They continue on to a second and third episode because they just run out of time. But he's got Imagineers on it. But yeah, if you haven't checked out A Walk with Walt, I highly suggest it. How could I forget Steph? Shout out to Steph, Magic Key Adventures. She's like my sister. She's awesome. We talk. We have such a background together, and have such a great culture between me and her. She's always looking out for me. I'm looking out for her. But yeah, Magic Key Adventures. Go check it out. That's another great podcast too. But that's it. I'm wrapping it up here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Maybe we'll do another deep dive on a ride. I just wanted to give the Haunted Mansion its love that it deserves. And we'll check it out next time. Come hang out. Follow me on social media, TMO_Mayhem, or check out the Magic of Mayhem on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere that you find your stuff. Follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, like I said, because that's where you're going to get it all. I hope you guys had a great time. We're not 100% historically accurate on everything, but I hope you learned something. So we'll catch you next time. We'll see you later. Bye.